Welcome to the 8 Steps to Financial Fitness workshops with Old Mutual. My name is Magadla and I'm your host. So in our previous workshop, we spoke to Elise and our main topic was about setting goals and achieving goals. Now we're moving on to another aspect towards becoming financially fit, and it's thinking like a boss. I'm thinking of the perfect person to take us through this conversation, Pat Magadla, who's the Senior Business Development Manager of Old Mutual Investment Group. Pat, welcome.
Thank you, Sichaba.
I love the title. I love the theme. Thinking like a boss. What exactly does that mean?
I think, Sichaba, maybe we need to just take a step back and give context, because last year was one hell of a year for many people and the world over. So with the, anemic macroeconomic environment that were just exasperated by the pandemic, a lot of people lost their income, a lot of people lost their businesses. So that's the context that we're coming from. And I think with the new year, it's an exciting time to start planning and looking ahead. And I was actually thinking, in terms of this conversation, how can we talk in a way that people are quite comfortable?
Yes.
And one of my experiences when I talk to people, to South Africans, a lot of people actually understand small business financial management principles. So a lot of people understand about making a profit and making a loss. They understand that if you want to be profitable, you need to keep an eye on your overheads. They understand, how much I need to pay for salaries, for inventory, for rental. Do I have money for advertising? Do I have money to buy new equipment? But when it comes to our own personal finances, we don't apply those same lens. So what I'm saying is that I want to challenge people to say the way we understand business concepts, let's apply those concepts when we're talking about our own personal finances and use those same lenses. And for me, in my case, it's basically thinking of Pat as Pat Pty Limited. So think of yourself as an entity and how you want to be prudent as that particular entity.
So how is personal finance and small business management similar? Like, how do those two sort of marry each other?
Okay, so if you look at the principles of small business financial management, they're pretty much universal and translate into your own personal finances. And I'll basically summarize it into 3 simple categories. So the one category, if you're a small business owner, one thing that you understand is that you need to track your expenses. You need to be very prudent about your fiscal management. And essentially it's understanding that how much money do we have and how much money is going out. And if you translate that into your personal balance sheet, it's essentially, it starts with the cornerstone of any personal finance, your budget. So understanding how much money do I actually have and allocating that money across your different expenses. And one thing, Sichaba, that I've noticed when you mention the word budget to people immediately
just lose their minds.
People immediately think, okay, there she goes.
Yes.
Deprivation, austerity, I must deprive myself. Sichaba, it's actually the opposite.
Okay.
Because what we're talking about is that if you've got a budget, you actually understand how much you're supposed to be spending every month. So if you love going out to a restaurant 3 times a month, budget for it.
Okay.
Put it in your budget. If you
So we're not saying don't go or don't do those things.
We're not saying don't go. What we're saying is plan for it. Put it in your plans. Because guess what? I mean, there's a very nice quote that I came across from a guy called Benjamin Franklin. And he was talking about the little expenses. And he was saying, beware of the little expenses, because those little leaks are the ones that can sink a great ship. So if you're not planning for those drinks or planning for whatever other expenses that you like, that's what can potentially sink your ship. So what we're saying is that have a budget and plan for it. Exactly what small business owners do. The second tip that I'd like to give away is that you need to reduce your expenses. So if you look at small business owners, they understand that we need to keep an eye on the overheads.
Okay.
So you need to be tracking, how much am I spending? How much do I still have to go before the month is over? And I think a lot of people, this is where we fall short. We don't keep an eye on our finances. There's something that I came across and it said, check your finances the way you check your social media. Because think about it, like these days, we are so beholden to our phones.
True,
If you see someone that you follow on Twitter has just tweeted, you want to see what they say.
You check what's trending.
Exactly. But we don't do the same with our finances. What we're saying is that keep an eye on those finances so that you're able to now actually start identifying what opportunities do I have to reduce some of my expenses. And then the third tip, and this one is critical, and very similar to small businesses, debt management. So debt management, I mean, like we mentioned in our intro, a lot of people had a lot of hardship in the previous year. And a lot of people who actually had very healthy personal balance sheets and had savings found themselves actually having to tap into debt because now they've lost their jobs or they've lost their income. So we are so mindful and sensitive to that fact. So if you're sitting in a situation where you see that you don't like the debt that you're sitting with, it's okay. You need to actually accept where you are.
Wow.
And you need to actually then list all of your debt, list all of your interest that you owe on that debt, so you have a good understanding of who do I owe and how much do I owe them.
That's really, really powerful. And a lot of it would obviously come from owning up to your truth financially. But let's speak about keeping track of finances. You mentioned that a lot when you're discussing this. What would you say to the ordinary person who, like, for instance, when you mentioned budget, just sort of goes, okay, like buzzkill, you know? How would you suggest that the day-to-day person keeps track of their money?
So that's a very good question. I think we are so fortunate, you and I and everybody else who's watching this video. We're living in an era that's everything is just technology driven, you know. So we live in an era where we can track how many steps have we done in terms of our fitness with fitness apps, right? I mean, if I want food, I've got an app where I can go on my phone and I can order food through an app, and it's no different with your finances. So there's so many different financial apps out there that can help you track your spending. One that I'm personally familiar with and I personally use is 22/7.
Okay.
Where you actually input your own personal budget and you're able to actually track how much have I actually spent on a day-to-day basis. So
that
it makes
might be
your life
scary
easier.
though for certain people. I'm thinking of myself and I'm thinking.
No, but Chaba, you know what's great about it? And this is what I always say to everyone. It's essentially, you want to control your money.
True.
You want to tell your money where to go. You don't want your money to control you. So if you're able to actually track it and see what's happening, you're able to actually see, you know what, I still have 1,000 rands to go when it comes to maybe going out with my friends. And it helps you start spending better and, more importantly, less impulse spending.
And debt, how would you suggest a person get themselves out of debt? We spoke about 2020. We spoke about the ramifications of the pandemic and how it left many people retrenched, without jobs, having to take pay cuts. A lot of people got into debt as a result of the pandemic. So how would you suggest a person slowly and gradually gets themselves out of debt?
So that's very important because, you know, we always say in the financial world that there are two types of debts. There's good debt and there's bad debt.
Okay.
And you need to be mindful of which debts that you have. And in terms of getting out of debt, there are typically two different methods that are well written about. The first method that I'll speak about, they call it the avalanche method. So after you've gone and you've listed all of your debt and all of the interest on that debt, with what the avalanche method says that you start with the biggest debt first.
Okay.
And you basically endeavor to pay that off as quickly as you can. But the
Not
weakness,
necessarily immediately, just...
Yeah, not
Okay.
necessarily immediately, but any extra money that you have to just quickly put it
Okay.
into that big debt so that you can squash that as quickly as possible. But what research has indicated is that a lot of people struggle with the avalanche method because it takes you longer to pay it off. And then a lot of people actually fall off the wagon. They just feel so discouraged. They feel like this mountain is too high for me to climb and they give up. So the second method, the snowballing method, is the one that I personally advocate for, because with the snowballing method is that after you've listed all of your debts, you take your smallest debt and you pay that one off as quickly as you can.
Okay.
And when we say that, Sichaba, we're not saying then ignore your other debts. Still meet your minimum contributions for your other debt so that you meet those obligations. And why the snowballing effect, research has shown that it's more successful. Because a lot of people, guess what? You want a quick win. So once I pay off my first debt, I feel great. I feel like I can do this again. And I'm more motivated to do the next one. And guess what's now happening? You're freeing up more cash flow as you pay off this debt. And you're able to add more to the next debt. And you can pay it off quicker and have more momentum. So the snowballing effect for many people yields probably better results.
So you say start with the smallest, achieve that, and then get motivated to step on to the next. It makes a lot of sense. But let's speak about this. I think we stressed how much the pandemic has affected us all in different ways. How would you want someone to receive the conversation that you and I are having? And what pointers would you want them to take from this workshop?
So I think for me, what's key, like especially when we talk about, you know, a lot of people have found themselves having to incur debt through no fault of their own. And I think what's key is that this is a new year. It's a fresh start. And basically have a plan. have a plan and then stick to it. And I think when it comes especially to debt management, because when we mention good debt and bad debt, essentially what good debt does is that it's when you borrow to actually buy something that's going to generate either more income for you or create an asset. So for example, if you take out a loan to study, that's good debt because you're investing in yourself and you're able to then earn more income. But bad debt, essentially, it's the debt that very simplistically takes you further away from your financial goals. Bad debt is Pat taking a credit card, for example, and going on vacation. Yes, I'm going to come back looking great. My Insta pictures are going to look amazing. But guess what? Like a week later, I'm stressed because I now have to start repaying that. So that's not necessarily good debt. So you need to discern between good and bad debt. But I think critically and most importantly, Sichaba, you ask a good question. For me, what I want the viewers to take away is that if you find that you don't like what your personal finances look like right now, it's okay. It's okay.
And I think a lot of people are feeling that right now.
Because guess what? I think every individual on this planet has made, some money mistakes along the way. I mean, you hear stories of billionaires that have gone bankrupt. So whatever situation you find yourself in, it's okay. What's important is to start that fitness again. And remember, this is not a sprint. It's a marathon. So start training again. Slowly start training. Slowly start capturing those good habits and get back on track. And as long as every day you just keep trying to do better, eventually you'll get to your financial goals.
Pat, this has been such an eye-opener. And what's the name of the app again?
24/7.
24/7. Yes. I'm literally downloading that when we're done here. I think the one thing that I took out of this specific workshop is that if you want to think like a boss, you need to start by looking at yourself as a small business. Debt, we look at it in different ways. You have your bad debt, you have your good debt, but also don't feel overwhelmed. The year 2020 derailed us, and we have to start the new year off with a new attitude, looking at it like a fitness journey and taking things one step at a time, one day at a time. I'll see you at our next workshop.